All right, Frederick, we're live, man. This is it. We'll see how this works. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we're officially also live on YouTube. Our names are. Wow, I totally butchered this, didn't I?
Have you done this before? I mean, like, what?
only 13th season. Turin Giants podcast number 290. We have a special edition today. For now, let's call it Motta out. That feels like we're bashing on the guy, but we will have a discussion. Hopefully, we'll have comments from the YouTubers as well, from Redditors, and we'll make it a discussion. My name is Farhad. I'm the host that loves you most. I'm joined here by Zach and Frederick. Let's get into it, shall we?
Trezeguet, Salaceta va al cross, salta Trezeguet, colpo destro Giorgio Andrade, Tudor, rete, rete, Tudor ha segnato 3-2, 47 minuti e 16 secondi, la Juventus ha segnato con Tudor, esplode di entusiasmo il delle Alpi, la Juventus è in vantaggio. Contasini per Nedved, Pirlo, la conclusione in rete, Andrea Pirlo, un gol pazzesco! Del Piero, gol! Alex Del Piero! Palla di Pogacar, Pogba, rete, un gol incredibile! Pogba fa esplodere lo Juventus Stadium. Buongiorno. Come ha detto lei, buongiorno.
Zach, you think that's enough intros?
I hope so. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do when Dusan leaves in the summer, man? You're gonna have to find a new Buongiorno.
I don't know. It's too much of a classic to let go. I bet he's happy today, huh? Boys and girls, like I mentioned, we are live on YouTube as well. We actually gained a bunch of new subscribers, so thank you all. Turin Giants, YouTube.com/Turin Giants official. We'll be checking from time to time, see if anybody joins us on the live version. But this will be posted on Spotify as well as Apple Podcasts and YouTube and a bunch of other podcast platforms. Lots to talk about, obviously. What shall we begin with? We have a new coach. I don't know if you guys have heard or not. What was it like for you, Frederick, yesterday? Let's start with you while I get some of the producing duties in check. Frederick, you were Motta out. You were a believer for a few days until until you were not. But do you think this was good timing, bad timing, just in time, or give me your thoughts, buddy?
I don't think there ever is a good timing because I see this as an absolute loss, no matter the fact that I couldn't stand Motta or was #Team Motta out. I think this is a loss to Juventus because ultimately it's a sign that your season has gone to shit, which it has. The only thing left to salvage now is 4th place. But it's an admittance of guilt. It's an admittance of guilt from the players. It's an admittance of guilt from Giuntoli. It's an admittance of guilt from management. So something had to be done, and I agree with Zach in his previous reel on our lovely Instagram page that you can go visit,
Nice.
where he
Look
said
at you
that it
promoting
was.
it.
Yeah, I'm catching up. Where he said that ultimately he lost the dressing room. And you could see that on the pitch, and I had this feeling for a couple of games now. I knew rather soon that he was going to be sacked yesterday. Also, let you guys know in our WhatsApp channel. I wasn't surprised, but there's never a good timing for this, especially given the fact that we have now a new coach who has to do his stuff, work his magic in a time span of 4 months, which is completely difficult. And it's even more so difficult given the fact that our team mentally is completely destructed and destroyed. So Tudor has his work cut out for him, but I think in all fairness, there was no other option at this point.
Yeah. I forgot to introduce Alessandro Del Piero, boys and girls, as always. There will be plenty of criticism, of course, on this episode. Oh, we actually got a new subscriber. Welcome. Let's read a message from Thiago Motta himself that was posted on, I think it's the Juventus website, right? I just have a screenshot from around Turin. And then Zach wanted to mention something that was maybe positives that should be taken away from his tenure at Juve. We'll try not to beat up on the guy too much.
I wanted to mention, I was asked to mention.
I
Poor
asked
Steven.
who would like to do that.
Freddie was over there shaking his head, so I stepped up. I will say something nice.
Fantastic. So a message from Thiago Motta. Here is the message from Thiago Motta to Juventus and its supporters. I have approached every obstacle with determination and a desire to improve every day. I'm grateful to the club's ownership for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this great team, and the management and staff for their daily support, and to the players for their hard work and dedication from day one. I wish Juventus and its fans all the best in the future. Well, first of all, Zach, positives that were taken away from Motta and his stay at Juve.
I think one of the biggest challenges that any coach was going to face coming into an Allegri-led Juventus team was that there's very little to work with. I mean, the tactics were similar to a relegation-fighting provincial side. So any coach had to come in, would have to remake the tactics, get whatever core of players was left over to learn an entirely new style of play, as well as all of the turnover. And I think the way our team has generally played from a possession-based game, from a tackling, especially in the middle third of the pitch game, and showing composure with the ball, all things that were just inconceivable under Allegri, are direct evidence to me that Motta did sort of remake the thinking and remake the tactics around this club that I think a more competent and experienced manager could pick up and actually make into a legitimately threatening final form.
Thank you, buddy. Yeah, as you guys can see, someone's watching us. We have comments here. What do you guys think about? First of all, very hard to pronounce, but Iorio, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I think I'll direct this message to Freddie regarding Giuntoli is just as much to blame as Motta. I've seen that a lot, and it sounds like Giuntoli is the next to go because Elkan is pissed, and you don't want Elkan to be pissed, right?
Correction. He in the chat, he says, pronounce Giorgio. I probably butchered that too. So apologies.
Sorry for butchering your name, man. We completely apologize, but thanks.
Oh. Okay, I see it.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't catch up to that chat yet.
No worries. I agree with our Greek friend Giorgio. I think Giuntoli is to blame as well, and I think Giuntoli is the first to leave in June, or the risk of Giuntoli leaving or being fired is pretty evident. Also, a bit of a scoop again. My source told me today that Giuntoli's head is indeed on the chopping block. And the person who's most likely to replace him is, which I think I said a couple of months ago, Paolo Maldini. You heard it here first, Turin Giants. So if Giuntoli gets fired or he leaves, because there was talk of him resignating and holding the honor to himself. Paolo Maldini is a suitable and qualified candidate, or at least on the shortlist to replace him.
To expand specifically on the question or the comment about Giuntoli, I think you partition blame, three ways, right? You definitely, we're going to talk a lot about Motta this episode, and a lot goes to him. We're going to probably talk a bit of the players as well, because I think some of the performances that certain players have made have been suspect on whether they're really trying, and so they deserve some of the blame. But I think a lot of what we've talked about this year as sort of undertones of the struggles of this team is the front office management. And I think when we look at how certain players were shown the door, like your Danilo, an experienced player or captain who we very much needed, not only in defense, but also from an experiential standpoint. When we look at young players being frozen out, supposedly after Leipzig, Fagioli was told, you're on the bench when he had a fantastic, I think 2 or 3 straight games. It's just confusing. It's baffling. It's showing inconsistency and disrespect. And I think at the end of the day, if you tell everyone it's a year 0 and that we're building this project, and then you end up firing the manager, the one who's supposed to shepherd in this new era before the end of the first season, it shows that the people who hired him, the people who vetted him, the people who went out on a limb to bring that person in, did not properly vet. It did not properly review and did not properly prepare this candidate or prepare for this candidate to bring in the right person for the job. And I think this whole sacking in general, especially if we're to believe what some of the things that Giuntoli said in the press surrounding Motta sacking true, it just shows either an incompetence or a detrimental stubbornness and sort of an intransigence to change and adaptation that you need as a front office manager.
Frederick, why so much? Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're okay. Why so much?
I'll ask you a question. Why so much hate for Giuntoli? Let's talk about his mistakes, if you don't mind. What comes to mind? Letting Keane go, right?
I see it. I see it in another light, because we all, and I want to comment on what another follower just said, Grumpy23.
Grumpy23, welcome.
Yeah, about the sacking of Giuntoli. We had Luciano Moggi, who did a lot of things very good at his time, but there were a lot of things that went wrong with him as well, transfer-wise. So I think to judge a sporting director just on the outgoing and incoming transfers is not correct, albeit that Giuntoli made a couple of mistakes, in my opinion. But what I hold against Giuntoli is the fact that he didn't remedy this situation between Thiago Motta and the players at a better time. I mean, he could have entered the dialogue. He could have set Motta straight a couple of times, which I think his job also is. But he failed to do so. And by sacking Motta, I think he's only admitting his own guilt as well. Because he was the one that followed Motta, he appointed Motta, and he basically said yes to everything that Motta wanted without looking at the feasibility or the balance within the squad. So without incoming, outgoing transfers, just, the numbers and the 200 million that gets thrown around a lot, I'd say that was his biggest issue. And that's the thing that Alcan at this point holds him responsible for. Because he had 2 jobs: to construct a winning team, not this season, but a team that, was on its way to win or at least get some trophies, in which he failed miserably. And the other was to bring up revenues and cut some of the costs that we had. So he did that, but he sacrificed a lot in order to get that. So I think all across the board, I think we can say that Giuntoli's first 2 years have been a mistake, and it's always, in hindsight, it's always easy to spew a bit of venom, but you have to be balanced, especially given the task that Giuntoli has. And I think the people above Giuntoli there made the first mistake. Because if you have a sporting director, he should have a general director to which he reports. And that's lacking. So Giuntoli basically had carte blanche, as they say, as did Motta. So between the two of them, there wasn't somebody to supervise or oversee.
Checks and balances.
Yeah, and it went tits up from there. Let's be honest, because there was no accountability.
Yeah.
We're in a results-based business, and I think when you look at a lot of the transfers in a vacuum, Coop Miners, awesome pickup. Douglas Luiz, awesome pickup. Nico Gonzalez, top scorer and assister on Fiorentina, knows the league, hard worker, good pickup. You know, Conceição, flashy dribbler from the Portuguese league, great pickup. But you also have to build a squad. And we went into this season without any coverage for Dusan, who all of us armchair analysts knew was going to be a disaster in Motta's tactics, and no right back. You then, even if we blame Motta for freezing out Danilo and Fagioli, we're talk about checks and balances. If that's what the squad needs for balance, or if that's what we need for leadership, or whatever it might be, then Giuntoli needs to have a conversation, say, no, these guys got to stay for these reasons, you know, and there has to be a tit and tat there. We have an imbalanced squad that Giuntoli helped build. And if he brought in the coach and he was shepherding the new vision that we then are blowing up before the end of the first season is a results-based business, that is direct evidence that he has failed. He did not bring in the right people, and he did not bring in the right players. So we can look in a vacuum and say that these signings were good. Certainly a lot of us, myself included, did say that in the fall. But they have to produce, and it's up to guys like Motta and Giuntoli to ensure that that's what happens. And both of these guys, by virtue of where we are now, have failed.
I interestingly got a small interview with Tacchinardi on Sky Sports Italy today, where he was commenting on the arrival of Tudor, and he praised Tudor for his mentality, the way he approached this game. But he also said another thing that I found remarkable. He said, you cannot create a winning team if you don't have a winning team. And this sounds retarded, but he, as a team, the winning team, he meant everybody behind the players.
Well, the players as well.
Managers. Yeah, so
the players as well.
It's something that has to be in balance, and you have to have a proper team in terms of management, in terms of players, in terms of coaching staff, with the same mentality, the same attitude, and the same transparency and accountability. And if you don't have all that to build upon, then you can buy whoever you want. But I think you're, at the end of the day, just lost.
And we saw that after within the players. You know, I railed about the expulsion of Danilo, and at the time, a lot of folks like myself who were saying, "Why are we getting rid of this guy?" We got a lot of hate for it because he just didn't start the season that well. But it's so clear that this team lacked leadership and character. And we said at the time that a winning mentality is not intrinsic; it's something you have to learn. Only winners know what winning is like. Right. And by getting away, you're proven winner. Everyone else is just guessing. And that's what we've seen. We've seen guessing from the players, totally clueless in the last two games. Right. We've seen guessing from the manager, sometimes throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks in terms of tactics. We've seen guessing in terms of transfers. You know, with our injury crisis, some of the guys we were bringing, like Lloyd, 20 million for Lloyd Kelly, that's a panic buy. And no disrespect to Lloyd Kelly, but 20 million for a player 6 months off of a free who hasn't played is ridiculous. It's just immaturity at all levels of the organization. And I think that, you know, bringing in someone like Maldini, I mean, I love Maldini. I think it's great, but you need to have top-down accountability, transparency, and leadership, like you said, Freddie. And I think we don't. We need it's a top-down overhaul. You know, even if Tudor ends up being the magic man, and that would be surprising to me considering he's been a coach for 10 years, but never stayed anywhere longer than one season, except for his first job. Even if that's the case, if you have a sick front office, he's going to get let out to dry.
All right, boys, let me just mention something real quick. So Motta's tenure with Juve 42 games, 18 wins, 16 draws, 8 losses. Serie A, we're currently in 5th. Champions League eliminated. Coppa Italia eliminated. Supercoppa Italiana eliminated. I personally, if I may say something, and I mentioned it on Juventus's Instagram, and it's getting crazy likes because it was one of the first comments that I popped up. I commented, should have been done not way before, but right after PSV loss. That's when you knew. It's when you had the feeling there's nowhere else to go. Maybe after Empoli, but if I was the man in charge, he would have been gone after the PSV, because we're going in there with a lead, and it's just there's no excuse to lose in extra time like we did. I don't know about you guys. I would love to hear your opinion. Freddie, what's your time? Motta, be gone. Is it after the 10th draw or is it after PSV, Empoli? And then I would love to hear Zach's opinion as well.
I kind of agree with you, but I also want to clarify something. The fact that they didn't sack him at that point was just from a financial standpoint, because Motta has a clause in his contract that states that if they fired him before the end of March, I don't know the exact date, Juventus was forced to pay out his whole contract plus 25 or 35% of an extra fee.
Okay.
So I get the fact that they were treading a bit lightly on that fact, but if it was up to me and I had carte blanche, I would have sacked him right. I'd left him in Eindhoven, to be honest, and I think that's part of the management's fault again, because if you have a game like we had against PSV, and within the same week we have that abomination of a game against Empoli, I think it's your responsibility.
I have to laugh at that one.
Yeah, but it's your responsibility as a sporting director to come out and state some facts and be open and transparent about that. At that point, Giuntoli should have come out and said, this is not Juventus worthy. I'm not gonna, it doesn't have to say like we want to sack Motta or whatever, but you could be a bit firm at that point. And you could let the public, Motta and your players feel that you mean business and that this is just not acceptable. But Giuntoli ran away, didn't appear in front of the cameras, neither did Scanavino, neither did Calvo, neither did Ferrero. So once again, full circle, no accountability. We just do as we please, and we'll see where the ship strands. But in all fairness, it's proven to be not the strategic best of plans that could have been outlined. So I would have sacked him straight after PSV. And I think Zach is a little bit more lenient than I. But I have a feeling that Zach couldn't stand some games after the PSV game. So
before Zach speaks, I forgot to play his intro. Represented H-Town. What do you think, man?
Indeed. Man, it is hot as hell here, by the way.
It's 37 in Chicago. Shut up.
It's 90 Fahrenheit, 32 Celsius here. It is just so hot. In Houston. I think about it more from a leadership or a strategic standpoint. If you're going to sack a guy with 10 games to go, and I get the financial aspect of it, Freddie, but just ignoring that for a second, if you're going to sack one with 10 games to go, you're actually putting an enormous amount of pressure on the interim coach and the players, because there's absolutely no leeway. If the main reason for the sacking, and I'm going to kind of say the main reason for the sacking is the lost dressing room. That led to the poor performances recently, and I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back. We saw evidence of the bad dressing room surrounding Danilo's departure, Fagioli's departure, the 2 Champions League games in January, PSV, and Empoli. The evidence that there was an issue in the dressing room was there before our undefeated February. And so I think if they were actually critically looking at this as a win now mentality, which they've shown by firing Motta now, then they should have done it with enough time for us to bring in an interim manager and give them time with the squad, like Milan did with Conceição. And doing it now, and I get it that other than, 4 of our next 5 games are against easier opponents, it still puts Tudor, who is kind of a short-term specialist. I'm not going to talk about him later, I know. But
Sure.
it puts him and the players under an enormous amount of pressure, an unnecessary amount of pressure, if this was done in a more timely fashion. And I think this goes back to, I think, incompetence at the senior leadership level of Juventus for not having a vision and not sticking by it and not making sure it was transparent at all levels, as well as making sure that everyone was accountable, not just Motta, not just Giuntoli, but the players as well. And, examples of Deco and Coop, both players I love, but players who have just for too long played poorly and deserve to play game after game. They're there. That's not evidence of players being held accountable. I think, some of the comments in the chat about Motta's comments after some of these games show that he wasn't really being held accountable. The lack of transparency for everybody above him in talking to the press, it just shows you that they weren't feeling the pressure to be held accountable either.
Well, you mentioned the table and the pressure of making the top 4. Let's just revisit Inter number in the first place, Napoli second, Atalanta in third, followed by Bologna in fourth, who leapfrogged us. And then we are sitting in fifth with 53 points. 52 points. I'm looking at Bologna and announcing Juve. So Juve 52, Bologna 53, and then in third with 58 points, Atalanta. And I'll mention the games that are coming up a little later, but it's not a great situation. Bologna will do everything to stay in the Champions League. They've tasted that the drama of the UCL, and I'm afraid that they will be fighting for that 4th spot. So yeah, that's the breakdown of the top 5 in Serie A.
Let me ask you guys a question. How many points? I mean, we got 13 draws. How many of those would have actually been wins, do you think, if Bremer hadn't gotten injured?
Oh man.
We're just speculating here, but
way more.
Do you think 4 or 5 of those would have been wins instead of draws?
Well, we need to see how many, like you guys will know that better, how many games of those that our defense crapped the bed.
I mean, just anecdotally, how many games in this 80th minute we let in a tying goal? I think that, when you think about it, we could conservatively say that 3 of those 13 probably. I mean, think of it. Bremer went down. We were undefeated. We hadn't let a goal in the league, right? We let in 1 goal in the Champions League. Like, that's the form we were playing on. A lot of draws still at the time, but if you're saying that 3 draws would have been wins, that's a 6-point difference. Yeah, I guess one tantalizing question is, and that would have put us, by the way, at equal with Atalanta, 5 points clear. Just if 3 draws were wins due to Bremer playing, did Bremer's injury ultimately doom Motta? Because if we're at 58 points, the morale of the players is going to be better because they're going to feel a little more secure, right? And management's not going to feel as under pressure to sack Motta when he's in the Champions League spot, because that is success.
I feel like we'd be in solid 3rd spot right now. I don't think we're in with the big boys yet, but that kind of broke, and there were so many moves we had to make in January because of his injury, and then someone else went down, right? Cabal, right? He's out. He was out right after. So let's not forget about him. But yeah, it's
but Bremer is maybe a top 3 player in Serie A, maybe one of the best defenders in the world.
I agree.
He goes down with the 8th game. And the Juventus's issue was we couldn't score goals, so when every goal we conceded was that much more valuable against us because we didn't give ourselves any margin. It's interesting to think if Bremer didn't get ever injured,
and Bremer scores goals as well.
Motta would have. I mean, and we're terrible on set pieces, but if we're 6 to 9 points difference, like Jorgo said, again, apologies for the pronunciation. Motta's still here. Everyone in management's still here. Giuntoli's not on this chopping block. Am I right? I mean, do you disagree with that, Farhad, Freddie?
Yes and no, to be honest, because in my opinion, I feel that it's the coach's responsibility after you lose a key player, which can happen to any team in the world, to
But
replace
somehow
him.
always happens to us.
Yeah, or just make it work. And I'm not saying that the absence of Bremer didn't cost us a lot of points, because obviously it does. I mean, if you lose one of your best players, it's going to have an impact. But I feel it's the coach's job to minimize that impact. And this is the thing that we can fault Motta at, because he was always very stubborn about his experiments, if we could put it that way, letting players play out of their position or his formation. So I think I can agree with I think 6 points, if I have to take a guess. This is wet finger work, of course, but I think we would have had 6 points.
But I'm getting to something. So if you say 6 points, that means we're again equal with Atalanta. We're solidly third, 5 points in the clear. You and I and Farhad are, we, as a matter of fact, would not be having this discussion. Motta would not be out. Giuntoli would not be on the chopping block. Scanavino, Caldwell, all them nobody would care. Alcon would still be gallivanting around the world doing his thing. Okay.
I love the word gallivant.
And so I get what I'm getting at is, considering we are here, Bremer did get injured. Is this a blessing that it happened and that we're going to get the sickness out? Or is this just extreme unluckiness for Motta, getting his first crack at a big team, having our best player get injured early in the season, who is, and I'm with you 100%. The manager still has to win, Freddie. But I mean, you lose your best player on any team, especially one as financially pressed as ours. It's impossible to replace. Like, is this a blessing in disguise, or is this just unlucky?
After Freddie's answer, I would love to read some comments. I just didn't want.
Yeah, sure.
I didn't want people to feel like we're ignoring them. Go ahead, buddy.
I feel, well, a blessing, it's a big word, of course, but you have to look at things from another perspective as well, because from what I gathered, there were like people lining up in front of Giuntoli's office the past couple of months to complain about the things that Motta said and did during practices. I've heard some things. I'm not sure if I can elaborate any further from my source. I texted him to ask for permission. But we had a discussion on a podcast where we were all baffled as to why Turin was left on the bench for a couple of games after some good games. Today I got the scoop, so to speak, about it. During that period, Turin fell ill. Well, he had a stomach bug or whatever. So we called in sick. He went to visit the team doctor. He said what happened, and the team doctor prescribed him some rest for, I think, 2 days. But the day after, he appeared on training, and he said, well, I'm going to try. I'm just going to see if I can, I feel better. I had some sleep, this and that. And Motta just demolished him in front of the team, saying that he was insubordinate, that he didn't respect the hierarchy, and went into a rant about his vision of football and left like the players surrounding the training pitch baffled, because it was a monologue that didn't hold any water.
Mm-hmm. It's just rambling.
And that's actually the point where it started to overflow, like the how shall I put it? The
Frustration.
whole vibe, the frustration, the tension between the players and Motta.
But I guess my point is that tension doesn't happen if we're winning. If we're 5, 6 points, 9 points higher, tension it doesn't happen in the same regard, because people get comfortable then.
Yeah, but I think my point being is, I think even if we had Bremer, something would have happened, because Motta was just not capable of managing a team of players, of personalities, of sports people, of a group. I think his group management, his stubbornness, his egocentricality just got in the way of bonding. Because I think if we had Bremer and we had a couple of more points and we would have been on fire, as they say, it would have helped. But I think Motta, combined with the players we have, the management we have, was a ticking time bomb. And it was bound to explode with or without Bremer. So I'm happy that it happened now. I mean, happy is a big word again, but I think it was inevitable.
Yeah, so you're saying it's a blessing.
Yeah, basically.
Very good. All right, boys. So we got people joining us and commenting. Thank you so much. This is our first time going live on YouTube. We really, really appreciate you. Giorgio, man, Giorgio, his keyboard is smoking right now.
I love it.
I love it too. People, people are into it. I love it so much. So Giorgio, just a couple of comments from him because there's enough to fill a podcast here. My man's on fire. So he said that I think Giuntoli overrated our squad. We like leadership and management. Upstairs, don't give a rat's ass about Juve. Just a lot of people's problem with the management as well. It just seems like they're running a corporation, which, again, I'm going to echo someone else's, many people's sentiment is bring back the old badge. And it's not just a badge. People just kind of don't feel a connection anymore ever since we became that, the new Juve badge. But of course, it's just opinions of people. But also, George is saying that Thuram has been essential for us. He's commenting on Freddie's story about what happened in training.
But it's a good point, right? Because all of us were like, the best midfield that we can put out there, or pivot, is Locatelli Thuram. But we weren't seeing it for games, right? And so I think when you say Thuram's been essential, but we don't see him, that raises red flags, right? That's the obvious stuff, right? The way you said, why isn't the manager doing this? Like, this is the obvious stuff, right? You're the manager. You figure out the difficult stuff. We all know who the best midfield is. Why isn't Thuram playing?
Yeah.
So it was
the starting lineups were weird too.
Yeah.
Well, to continue, Giorgio, thank you. Let me finish up with last of Giorgio's comments. He's saying that it's easier to manage Bologna as opposed to Juve.
Yep.
And what's that?
I just said I agree.
Oh, okay. I thought you said no. I wanted to hear why you disagree. But moving on to Grumpy23, another one of our commenters, is saying that to me it feels like Elkan is waiting for Agnelli's ban to end. He wants someone who's more passionate than him to take over. I agree. I'm one of those people that cannot wait for Agnelli to come back to set Juve on the right path again. And this is a very low point, but I feel like, again, I'm remaining optimistic. It's drama for us to follow, and maybe within 3-4 years we'll be back on top, properly being a European squad again. So thank you guys for your comments.
I mean, what's absolutely hilarious to me is if you say that with Bremer we have 6 more points. Well, before Atalanta, we were 6 points out of first place. So even conservatively speaking, and how shitty this season has gone, with Bremer, I think we would have been either first place or in the hunt for the majority of the year, which is just crazy. Again, if we take Motta out of the equation and we put a better man manager, which ultimately doomed Motta, is his lack of good man management. If you put a better man manager out there, you bring in a right back and a striker who can actually score instead of Dusan, this team probably is pretty darn close, right? You right back, a forward, and Bremer back, and this is a team that actually, I believe, and what we've seen, even with all of the crap we've dealt with, you take that next step up with just those couple fixes. This could easily be a team that starts competing not only for Scudetti, but also internationally.
The thing that we saw is when we play with fire and passion, even though that we lack sometimes the technicality or tactical sense of placement and pressure, if we play with passion and with fire and with hunger, we are a side to be reckoned with. So I think we have this basis. I don't feel that we should throw out the child in the bathwater. I think we should try to, I hate the word, but rebuild see what works and what doesn't, and rehabilitate some players. Because to me, I mean, it's unimaginable that Koopmeiners, Nico Gonzalez, even Vlahovic are the same players that we witnessed the past couple of seasons, or the way that they're playing now. So these guys need to be rehabilitated. They need to be put in a position to perform. And I think, leapfrogging onto our potentially next subject, I think Tudor, even though he has his work cut out for him, is the type of personality that can bring that out of them.
I think that's the
Go ahead,
perfect
Zach.
I think that's the perfect segue, Farhad. I think we should talk about the coach, the tactics, and what he can bring to this team.
I wanted to bring up our Instagram comments, because we have a lot of people who listen on Instagram. It's all right. You didn't know. So I posted a thread. Well, not a thread. Just posted a photo of Motta and asked our followers at Turin Giants on Instagram to comment with their thoughts on the whole situation. Obviously, there's a ton of, like, 40 something comments here. I wanted to bring up something from our old friend, the old lady. He's from Australia. I know we've been buds online for quite a while. He's saying that, it started promising and looked like he was about to change the mentality of the team, but quickly showed that he was unable to motivate and impose an identity. We start from square one again. Someone else said that it proves that Bologna was just a good team. It wasn't his coaching. I don't know if that's fair or not, but here it is. Amit, our friend Amit, I want to bring up his comment as well, that says, I feel for Motta a little based on the injury. I feel for him a little bit based on the injuries he had to contend with, and we, of course, brought that up as well, and also the way Juve handled his departure. But he had to go based on the performances. It was getting only worse. We had a better choice of getting a UCL spot with Tudor, which says a lot about the confidence in Motta. Someone says that Motta was unlucky, not his time. SoCal Native Son says he's fifth on the table. Enough said. Someone says shambles, and he flopped, and disaster. Yeah, so please go on our Instagram if you want to join the conversation at Turin Giants. But yeah, that's basically what the fans are saying, and let's continue. Zach.
Yeah, let's talk about what to look forward to over the next several games with Tudor, with the team and the players. And I think we'll rope in Grumpy's question in the chat. He asked if Tudor will stay after the summer, and I think that is a good question that I know Freddie and I have opinions on.
Can I interrupt you for a small discussion? I apologize. It's just there's a segue inside the segue, if you don't mind.
Okay, Inception segue. Let's go.
That's right. So I was wondering what you guys thought about the potential coaches that were bandied about before they actually announced Tudor, like Mancini, for example. I don't want to make it a long thing, but I know Freddie had some thoughts about Mancini, and Zach, if you want to bring that up. Would you choose him over Tudor? But I think ultimately it was because Mancini wanted to stay in case he does secure the fourth spot, and I agree with him. I feel like he's a great coach, and he's not a guy that will bring you to fourth spot in the Champions League and then you bounce him.
Ignoring the context, though, whether is he going to stay or not? Just looking at what the coach brought to the table. When you bring a guy in at this stage of the season, in the business end, with no training time, and you have to win, you're going to go based on pure man management is like the number one criteria. People who can excite and motivate the players to rally them quick. If you're over technical, you don't have the time.
Yeah, it's no time for fancy tactics right now.
And you also managing a team like in this situation also requires experience in that. Certainly when you're when you're coaching a team with the stature of Juventus, you have experience. Tudor is definitely a man management type guy. We're going to get into his tactics because he's not purely man management, but he's an aggressive, high octane type guy who's going to fire up these players. Okay. And as Freddie said, you fire up these players. We have a team there. Secondarily, okay, he is sort of a short-term specialist, and this kind of gets into Grumpy's question. He didn't stay anywhere long. He's coached 10 different clubs. He stayed at more than one season. He's done the short-term job at Verona. He's done the short-term job at Udinese. He's done the short-term job at Lazio. He's got the chops and the Juventus DNA. Mancini hasn't coached a top club in a decade. Okay, preparing for a club is different than the national team, international team. And so I had reservations over his ability to step in and do the short-term job, completely ignoring what long-term implications might be.
If I may interject, and I wanted to take this moment to shed some light onto Alcon, because if I read the forums, if I read Reddit, I see that Alcon gets a lot of hate. If that's reasonable or not, I'll leave that in the middle. What I do know is, and I know that for a fact, that Alcon sees Juve as an asset, as well he should, but he still has a passion for Juventus. He's not into the whole football thing. He has businesses that produce a hell of a lot more revenue-wise. So as a businessman, I can see where he's coming from. But on the other hand, when Giuntoli asked him if he could start talks with Mancini, it was Alcon who said, no, I don't want Mancini. And this leads me to believe that the Alcon, as an owner, is really thinking about restructuring the whole hierarchy within Juventus. Because if you have, as an owner, have a sporting director who recommends a trainer, even for the foreseeable future, but you say no at that point, means that you're thinking about shaking things up for the next season. And I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. And that's probably the main reason why they didn't start talks with Mancini or someone else. My apologies. So I have if Alcon is a person that doesn't takes Juventus to heart, well, the latest decision making contradicts that. So I feel that we, as a whole, as supporters, maybe should consider the fact that Alcon has the best interest for Juventus. Also, given the fact that he invested, I think, €1 billion in the last 6 years.
It goes both ways, Freddie. I mean, you say all of that, but he also put the people in power that have led us to here. So, you know, maybe you could say maybe he hopefully learned from his mistakes or whatever, but there's still a lot to prove from the administration side of the club.
But I also think when the whole board resigned at once, Paratici, Nedved, Agnelli, it was also an admittance of guilt back then, financially. And I think as a business owner, the first thing you need to do if you see that your business is failing, because we were touching bankruptcy, I mean, let's be honest. I think the first thing you need to do is look at that financial picture and get that sorted. And that's why I think he took the step to put Scanavino and Ferrero in place, just to, you know, get control over the books, because you want your asset to be as financially sound as possible. And I think after having done that this season, I think he can move on to the next step and bring some structure and some football identity back into management. At least that's my hope. We'll see what the future holds, but I can see a sort of a clear path. I'm not saying that it's gonna be not a bumpy road, but I can see his good intentions with Juventus as a football club, but as a business asset as well.
All right, can we leave Inception segue and go to Tutor?
Let's go, buddy. Yes. Obviously, many Juventini have seen him play for Juve and
Yes.
play well. Fredo, let's mention a couple of memories that you have of him as a player, and then we'll give Zach an opportunity to talk about him as a coach.
I have a bifold memory. I have the goal of against Deportivo La Coruña,
Which we played at the
47th
top of the
minute.
show.
Yeah, but that's a memory I'll never forget, and I'll also tell you why. I was a kid back then, believe it or not. I'm still a kid, but I mean, like really.
I just imagine you the same
No,
bald-headed smoking cigarettes.
I had hair and didn't smoke. But apart from that, it was one of the games that I went to see with my dad
Oh wow.
and a Juventus official club. So not live, but I saw it like on the big screen and an official club.
Beautiful.
And we were out of the Champions League up until Tudor scored. And I remember actually crying that game because we were playing a shitty game, to be honest. But I was very disheartened at that point. And my dad looked at me, I think it was like 2 or 3 minutes before Tudor scored, and he said, "This is one of the biggest life lessons you'll ever have. Even the things that you love most will eventually hurt you the most, but you have to get on top of that, because that's when you'll eventually find true love, whether it be it in a relationship or friendship or with a football club. You have to get past these moments, and even though they hurt, you're gonna, in the long run, it's gonna be worth it." And literally 2 minutes later, Tudor pulled that volley right out of his backside, and yeah, it was an amazing
In area
moment.
Trezeguet, Salaceta va al cross, salta Trezeguet, colpo destro Giorgio Andrade, Tudor, rete, Tudor ha segnato,
Dele Alpi goes wild, huh? Beautiful story, man. Beautiful story.
And I mean, it was one of the moments one of the few moments that I actually bonded with my father. And so for me, it was an amazing memory. And when I read that he was going to be the second coach, Pirlo's right hand, that he paid 150K out of his own pocket to pay for his release clause at his other team at that point. That was amazing, because he wasn't even head coach. He was going to be like second coach, and he paid his own release clause. If that doesn't scream Juventinità, then I don't know what does. So I have.
Alessandro Del Piero is
regards.
happy. So before we get to Zach, let's mention 2013 to 2015 Hajduk split, 2015-16 PAOK in Greece, 16-17 Karabükspor in Turkey, 17 Galatasaray, 18 Udinese, 19 Udinese, Hajduk split again in 2020, and that's when he paid his release clause from Hajduk split to join Juventus as an assistant. Then returns to Serie A coaching with Hellas Verona, Marseille, Lazio, and now Juventus.
And almost all of those, except for the first couple, as
2
sort of caretaker roles in less than a year, even his back-to-back Udinese splits were separated with him leaving and then coming back.
Are you guys happy we have a bold coach now?
Well, he's like us. Like we understand him. He's
One of us.
One of us.
But
Yes.
I think when you look at a new manager coming in, one of the things you want to say is it a just complete tactical departure from where we were? And not really, in my opinion. And I think that's a good thing. He does play very much. I would liken his play style, like we saw it at Marseille and Lazio specifically, because his Verona was a little bit more pragmatic, more so of a Gasperini-like 3-4-2-1, with the two being more attacking midfielders than wingers, which maybe creates the question of what a pure winger like Conceição might do on our team, whether we would even purchase him at this point. But not getting into that just yet. He loves the high press with the 3-4-2-1. We've employed that under Motta several times this year, or at least in possession, a 3-4-2-1, 3-4-3 at times. And so I don't think it's an enormous departure from what the players are used to. I think what you're going to instead see is more of the influence on the man management side, a more sustained high line with persistent pressuring, ushering the ball into wide areas that where the players can then condense on the ball, win it back, and create scoring chances. His teams tend to score a lot, and his teams tend to concede chances. So I think we're going to hopefully see an opportunity for Colomwani and maybe even Dusan himself to get more opportunities on the ball if the players can buy into his high press and his sort of ball winning mentality. That, again, was not a huge departure from what we saw from Motta. And so, like, when you look at our starting lineup, I think it's pretty easy to see, your Kalulus, your Gattis, your Vegas in the back line, your Weah right wing back, your Locatelli, Thuram, maybe Koopmeiners, Locatelli, considering it's an Atalanta style 3-4-2-1, Cambiasso on the left. I think the real question is who plays in that attacking midfielder role, because it tends to be, again, more attacking midfielders and not wingers. Yildiz probably has that. But do we see Conceição shift in the middle? Do we see Nico in the middle? Do we see Thuram play higher, Coop play higher, Douglas Luiz play higher? And I think ultimately, to get the most out of this formation, that's the biggest question that Tudor has to answer for me, is who's going to be in those two attacking midfielder roles? Because, and we can get into it if you'd like, Farhad, those are the two roles that ultimately dictate how this formation plays, in my opinion. And so I think whoever he chooses, that the pressure's on them to facilitate the way that this formation will work.
I agree, and I also think that we'll see a Juventus side that will be a lot more aggressive, with a lot more high pressure. So I think it'll be physically more demanding, and I think that this will be maybe our biggest
test.
I'm not gonna say test because that sounds a bit hefty, but it is in fact a test if you consider the fact that you have to prepare these players to embody that physicality also in training. Because what we saw this season is that, well, our team was spent around the 60 to 70 minute mark. That's something that
To be fair, that happened also under Allegri. I remember
but
the opponents just pressing us after minute 70 and overtaking us.
I think because we lacked physicality in our preseason and in our day-to-day training schedule. I think we saw under Allegri a lot of players gain muscle mass. To me, that was apparent. I saw a lot of players getting really buffy, but I couldn't see them running for 90 minutes. And that is something that it's also a bit inherent to the DNA of Juventus. We always kept running. If you see the games that we won, like the legendary ones, those were games where we didn't outshine our opponents technically, but in aggressiveness and physicality. And I think Tudor is aiming to bring that back. You saw that in Marseille as well, because the Marseille side that he took over was a lazy team in terms of possession and high pressure. And he turned that around pretty quickly to a team that consisted of players giving it their all and running for 90 plus minutes.
I actually posted a reel. Sorry to interrupt. I posted a reel where this game from the 90s, Juventus Milan, and it's a goal against Milan, and some of the commenters can't believe how physical, how imposing Juve was. You see players like Boksic and Delivio. We talked about him on last couple of podcasts. They would shut down the opponent and just be physically stronger than them. And go to our Instagram and see what real Juve looks like,
But part of that is desire, right? Guys like Koopmeiners, guys like Yildiz, guys like McKennie, these are guys who can run the whole game. they have to want Thuram as well. Look, I mean, you got to want it. And when we looked at some of our recent performances, the players did not want it. And I think that's when I talk about man management, right? You're not going to fix the physicality of a team at this stage of the season, but you can fix their motivation and their desire. And I think when I look at Tudor, I look at a guy who can come in and he can shake the fear, the uncertainty, the depression, or whatever you want to call it, that this team has been plagued with. And you can hit the reset button and say, all right, guys, this is how it's going to go. And I mean, we don't have any other competitions. He can be blunt about it, right? If you don't do this, you won't play. Very simple. And I don't think Tudor's the type of guy who's going to look to make, pick favorites. He's going to come in and he's going to play the people who work the hardest and do what he says. Simple. Full stop. And I think it's up to the players to show up. And I think the players, to some extent, gave up on Motta, and rightly or wrongly. And I think there's definitely some blame there, that they showed a lack of character and motivation in themselves. But Tudor's not going to deal with that. He will play the players, he will run, and he will work hard. And we do have the players that can do that, for 90 minutes at this stage of the competition. We do.
Well, if they don't take spot number 4, I keep want to call it spot number 4, but you know what I mean. Say goodbye to Yildiz if we don't secure the Champions League spot. Say goodbye to Mbangula. All of the young players that you thought would be the future of Juve, let alone bringing reinforcements, is going to be super tough. So should we mention upcoming games?
Real quick,
I'll bring it up, but you go ahead.
Yeah. I did want to touch on, just from a tactical standpoint, because y'all know I'm a little bit of a geek about this. And
let's go.
By the way, hi, I think you flashed up. Gob Miners joined us.
Gob Miners,
welcome. Why the attacking midfielder positions are so important in a Tudor system, because it is just like Gasparini's in this regard, is their movement dictate what everybody else around them does. They're going to move into the channel or drop deep, maybe towards the wing. If the defender follows them, then you have the wing backs and the striker that can move into the occupied space. If the defenders don't follow them, they get delivered the ball and then look to turn immediately upfield to look for the striker or the wing backs. It's a positive system that's based on sort of a reactionary defensive response to effective off-the-ball movement of those attacking players. And so we were going to look at players that have a high work rate, but also a high technical ability. So Yildiz can do it. I love McKennie, but I don't know if his technical ability is such that he can turn on the ball if he's given it in those types of positions. Informed Nico can, but we haven't seen that for months. So it'll be curious to see who Tudor puts in that position, because it will be around those players that the entire tactics will center. And said another way, in a lot of these higher possession systems, you see the majority of touches coming from the center backs, right, as they pass. Certainly 3-back systems where they pass around the back to kind of feel out defensive schemes. Well, that's not what you saw in Tudor systems. In Marseille, he had 57% possession. The majority of the touches were in the midfield. They're looking to facilitate positive movement, especially after winning the ball, through suffocating press, forward in a positive way. And so it's going to center on the ability of whoever he puts in that attacking midfielder position to move effectively without the ball, and then to collect and to distribute efficiently when on it.
Funny thing, I agree with Zach, because he touched on pure gold, what Zach said. He touched on Gasparini and the Tudor system, which shows similarities. Funny thing is, to me, if I look at it, it sounds like a more modernized playing style of the style that Lippi chose back in the day. And I don't think that's a bit of a coincidence, because Gasparini was a staff member when Lippi was coaching, and Tudor played under Lippi. So I think the influence and, coming back a bit full cycle, albeit a bit modernized and revamped, it's nice to see. So yeah.
Love it. And let's not forget Conte learned from Lippi as well. So let's mention
Conte, by the way, was a guy that Tudor has reached out to on several occasions, publicized, right, to help inspire his and learn from his coaching. So there are direct influence there.
And good friends, I think, still to this
yeah.
day.
Yeah.
a comment from Gob Miners, which is my new favorite nickname. By the way, 6 people watching us, boys. We went from 2 to 6.
Let's
3x,
go.
baby, 3x.
I love it so much. I will never be about numbers. As long as people enjoy it,
Yeah.
let's do this. So
At least
I
it's
mean,
not all of our moms, you know. So we graduated from that.
Definitely not my mom watching. let's compare next 4 games. So Juventus and Bologna. Juventus is playing Genoa at home on March 29th. Then Roma in Rome.
Mm-hmm.
Lecce in Turin. I think Kevin, shout outs to Kevin. He will be present at that game.
Yep.
And finally, April 21st, we're playing Parma away.
And if you want to do the fifth one, that's Monza home. So you're looking at Genoa, Lecce, Parma, Monza. 4 out of 5 of those games are games that with our eyes closed, Juventus should win. We've been hurt too much this year to say that that's going to be the case. But you know, when you look at bringing out a coach, this might be the perfect run of games, right? I think these are games that you can inspire your players to go out there and just play their natural game, put them in their natural positions to play their natural game, and they should win 4 out of those 5. The tricky one is the Roma game, because they're playing lights out right now, and it's in Rome, and so that is going to be the test. I think the litmus test, I should say, on where this team stands from a character standpoint. Because tactics is going to be a second game with Tudor. It's going to be about character. How does this team fight? How does this team play? How does this team respond to adversity? And I think that's the game where we're going to really see what character Tudor has instilled in this team, if at all.
Yeah,
it's going to be a battle royale.
That's right. Oh, lucky Juve fans who will be able to go to that game. Dybala is not going to be playing. He has a season-ending surgery. But let's take a look at our direct competitor, Bologna. Their games: Venezia away, Empoli away, and then they get Bologna. They get Napoli at home, Atalanta away, and Inter at home. So they definitely have their work cut out for them if we really want to capture that fourth, that elusive 4th spot. We need to make sure we win our games, and I'm pretty sure they will drop points.
I mean, that's all of it. I mean, it's everyone at this time, and if this season has shown anything, it's that nobody wants the 4th spot because it's been exchanged between like 6 different teams. And so it's just whoever bleeds the lesser amount of points is ultimately going to come away with it. And I think with that in mind, the Roma game's not the kiss of death if we lose. Obviously, it would be bad, right? Obviously, we'd be bad. But I think there's a lot of points that are still going to be won and lost in this very even, turbulent Serie A season. And I think maybe to kind of segue into the comment from Richie that you showed up there is Tudor, I think it really comes down to man management and who he puts in that attacking midfielder role. If he can inspire the players, shed the skin of the Motta experience, let's start anew, get the best out of players, maybe put in a Gasperini-like system, put Coop into what he's used to, what he's been doing the last several years, right? Get Yildiz off the bench where he was relegated for the last several matches. These types of things could be really simple fixes because, like I said, from a tactical standpoint, it's not terribly different from what Motta did. It just I wouldn't expect to see Nico Gonzalez, if he plays, to be the one providing width anymore. The 2 attacking midfielders that Tudor plays generally stay more centrally to then make runs into the channel. Being the only notable difference, the only major difference, I should say, from a tactical standpoint for how we've played in possession with Motta to the tactical setup of Tudor.
I think we're all excited. But we're gonna look at. Sorry, I lost the comments here. It's hard to navigate YouTube and doing all of this, but I'm enjoying it so much. But I apologize
Shout
for
out to
the
everyone who's
connection here.
commenting. It's great to
Yeah,
always with all
Yeah.
the folks. I appreciate all of you.
I was just gonna interrupt saying Cop Miners' question, who'd already worked under Tudor. I'm not sure about
Let me
McKenny,
read the
but I know
question.
Milik is.
He was wondering. Sorry, he was wondering who from our current squad has already worked under Tudor. If I'm not mistaken, only Milik. I don't know who that is. Apparently, he's still on our team. But Milik and McKenny had such an experience under.
I think
Tudor.
Milik actually left Marseille right before Tudor joined. So I don't believe they've actually worked together.
Oh, interesting.
I think, in fact, one of the big challenges for Marseille when Tudor did join was they had lost all their attackers, Milik included. And so if I'm not mistaken, his Marseille team was all Serie A rejects. And he had like Alexis Sanchez playing striker. You had Guendouzi playing attacking midfielder and so forth. So if I'm not mistaken, the only players that I'm aware of that would have played under Tudor is any holdovers from the Pirlo age. And I'm not sure we have any. And that's because I haven't looked at it recently. Freddie, is there anybody that's still on the team from Pirlo's time?
I really don't think so. I
Other than
don't know
Perrine?
I think McKenny is the only one.
Pinsolio.
Yeah,
Pinsolio probably.
McKenny would probably be. I don't remember exactly when he joined. McKenny, maybe Loca. I don't know who was all on that team off the top of my head, but it's not a lot of players, and it would be in a Pirlo system that was similar but different. In fact, Tudor left the Pirlo coaching staff mid-season because of disagreements with Pirlo. So I don't know if those folks like McKenny, if he was on that team, as Jorgo says in the chat, whether that actually is beneficial. Not to say that it's probably not negative, but it unfortunately probably isn't beneficial.
And that's the thing about Tudor. He always resigns. I just love him for that. If he doesn't disagree, he's not the type of guy, to set out this contract, get paid. No, he just says F y'all and he's out. And yeah, you got to respect that as well. I mean,
I think kind of a Zidane-like. If it's not the good fit for him, he's gone. Yeah. And the fit for him is one of two things. Like in Marseille, for some reason, so many people in management and so many fans hated him. So he's like, okay, fine, I'm gone. In Verona, after they got 9th with him, he was like, I want to remake this squad. We're mid-table now. Let's take the next step. And the management said no. So they didn't back him. So he said, I'm gone. And I think it's a very pragmatic approach. It's curious to see with his ties to Juventus, if we do have a really successful time, whether the management comes and says, hey, this is what do you need from us? Because his track record shows that if he doesn't get what he wants,
he have a very big testicles.
I think Zach, to elaborate on that, I think that'll depend on who will be our next sporting director next season.
Yeah, we wait and see.
That'll be the big question.
And I think wait and see. Like I kind of shouted out earlier about say Conceição, like he probably doesn't fit under the 3-4-2-1 of Tudor, and so his existence at this club will depend on who's the next sporting director. If Giuntoli goes, is their general director being brought in? Is Tudor going to be the coach? What kind of tactics will we play? So there's going to be a lot of moving parts over the summer. And I think actually God Miners makes a good point. Something that I forgot to mention that it is important about Tudor is, the thing with Gasparini's system, and I'll read God Miners' comment. He said last year Tudor started with a 5-man midfield, then changed to his 3-4-2-1. Tudor generally likes to stick rigidly to the 3-4-2-1 tactic or formation, but the way he plays it, usually, at least in his last four or five coaching roles, has been built around the capabilities of the players. Mm-hmm. So while the formation is been kind of something he's generally originally stuck to, he is flexible with how he utilizes it to get the most out of the players at hand, which I think is sort of a really nice agile approach to to tactics. When maybe when we look at someone like Gasperini, who's pretty rigid, or we look at someone like Motta, who we've criticized for his rigidity. Tutor's been more pragmatic about how he approaches it, recognizing the qualities, or at least the qualities of the most important players on his team. And Verona being a perfect example, with Illich and Barak at the time, if I'm not mistaken, he centered it around them. They were the big players. They were way more pragmatic, way more direct, way more counterattacking. When you look at his Lazio or his Marseille teams, or maybe his Galatasaray teams, they want to be high press and they want to more stranglehold you. So it'll be curious in how he evaluates our squad in light of our characteristics. And I think if you see a more negative counterattacking approach, that shows you right there what he thinks of our quality.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see.
I have some news flashes, Farhad. Do you mind me spewing them, or
my guy, please go. Your scoops are always super interesting.
Yeah.
By the way, we will remember your Maldini story. I'm not gonna post it anywhere yet, but if it happens, I will test you, and I will post a timestamp when you actually told the audience that Maldini might be
the six listeners, our mothers, and the three of us. We were there.
But a lot of things can happen, especially on the transfer market. There are a lot of moving parts that need to fit together. But
as of right now, you think that's happening?
No, but having an insight on like a coach getting fired or on the verge of getting fired, that's something that's either a yes or a no. So that's pretty straightforward if you have the right connections to entail. But transfer wise, it's always a bit difficult. But leapfrogging into that,
talk to us. I always love your predictions.
Dortmund asked information about Mbangula and McKennie. I'm not sure.
I have a feeling McKennie is gone after this season.
I have no idea. This is not. I just know for a fact that they reached out to Juventus about transfer to both of them. But we'll see how that develops.
No, God! No, God, please!
Alcon, as far as coaching, personally wants either Conte or Pep, which seems very unlikely, but this is Mr. John Alcon's desire. So if he can, break the bank a bit more than he already did and can get some of those people in.
John Elkann wanted Lewis Hamilton, and he got Lewis Hamilton. So he's got the money if he wants to do it.
What John wants, John gets.
It's true. I mean, he said no more capital for Juventus, and then he's gonna sack and pay out all the contracts to the front office people. It sounds like so.
Yeah.
Who knows what could happen. McKennie thing is, it would stink, but the poor guy has had such a bad time at Juventus, where he's always on the outside looking in, and we only extended his contract 1 year. So in this summer, he's yet again going to be 1 year to go. And if Giuntoli is still in charge, he'll get the same frozen out treatment. He'll probably be begging Dortmund to come pick him up, so he doesn't have to deal with this nonsense anymore.
Yeah, agree. Also, circling back to Alcon is a big fan of Tonali. Who isn't? Tonali in this Juve squad would have his place, but let's.
Who's going to bring Tonali? Maldini.
No, hold on. I need Freddie's inside knowledge for something, because I had a dream that what is the chances, or what are the clauses requiring Fagioli's transfer to Fiorentina to be finalized? Like how can he come back to us?
There is a possibility that he can come back to us. It's not an unrealistic thing. The thing that I'm hearing now is that Fagioli is not ready to come back to Juventus. Fagioli feels.
But if all the people who froze him out are gone.
Yeah, I mean, but it still begs the question: Will Giuntoli be there? I mean, this is the pinnacle of everything. Giving with regards to our next season, will Giuntoli be there? And if he'll be there, how will he change or adapt? I think those are the two key points that we need to take away. And
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see on
I
that.
see Fagioli returning to Juventus someday, to be
Oh,
honest.
I hope so. I hope
I
so.
see him returning to Juventus, maybe not in the way, shape, or form that we hope, like as in next season come back and we'll settle something within that deal that we made. But
We'll buy him when no one wants him anymore, when he's won all the trophies, and then we'll bring
buy
him back
for 50 million or something. Like no,
so he can retire.
no, I see him coming back. But another thing that's very interesting to me is, and this is a rumor, take of it what you will, but they say that Alkan, while he was in Turin, he was there for a day and a half. He spent an hour and a half on the phone with Vlahovic, which is something unique because, as far as I know, Alkan doesn't like to communicate with players on at those types of occasions because he feels that he's not the right man to do so. Alkan is very pragmatic in the sense that he thinks, I have a sporting director, he needs to direct the sport. I have a coach, he needs to do the coaching. I have a physiotherapist, so he's very pragmatic and very business-like approach. So given the fact that he spends an hour and a half of his time talking to Vlahovic on the phone.
An hour and a half.
How much?
I've never
how much is
spoken
John?
to anyone.
Well, no, I mean, just forget about the time. I mean, like, how much is John Elkann's time worth? I mean, for an hour and a half. I mean, geez, like an hour and a half of his time. That's millions of dollars. I mean,
I have the text. I have the text message in Italian here, and so the text message basically is the message I just said. And then the last sentence cracks me up. I know what you're going to say, but no, they weren't talking about escort girls.
Of course.
The only escorting they were
video.
probably talking about was escorting Dusan out. It is just because we know his contract is untenable.
Yeah,
I don't know what else, I don't know what they were saying beyond that. Maybe trying to see, like, I mean, let's be blunt. It's probably actually a violation of sporting law to talk to Dusan without his agent if it was about his contract. So
who knows?
So, you know, I don't know how much I necessarily buy John Elkann, as busy as he is, spending an hour and a half talking to Dusan Vlahovic.
So
without his agent.
So we have Freddie who brings us the scoop, and then Mr. Pragmatic Zach. He does not like that. When Elkann called Dusan, he picked up the phone and said, "Damn it! I was hoping to."
No, I
catch
like
that."
Freddie's scoops. This one, though, he admitted was a rumor. And
this is nothing set in stone, and I have
one
trouble believing it as well. But
I don't know if it passes the smell test.
It does sound a little rumory.
I mean, Alkan is known for not talking to people, like people actually in charge. Like he doesn't even pick up the phone when Giuntoli calls. He picks up the phone when he thinks it's time to pick up the phone. Like
he picked up the phone for Lewis Hamilton. I'm telling you, so maybe
Alkan is that big. Like he has literally FU money.
Yeah.
In that regard, so I find it a bit strange that, you know, Vlahovic of all people. If you tell me like he spoke with Del Piero an hour long, Del Piero is a Juventus legend. I mean, but Vlahovic, I mean, yeah. And the last thing, Cabal, his injury rehabilitation is not going well. He has several inflammations on the knee that he had surgery on, where they were hoping to get him back maybe amidst the World Cup or shortly before the World Cup. That hope has now all but gone. So we'll face the World Cup probably without Cabal.
John Elkann, heir to Agnelli family and CEO of XR, has a personal net worth estimated at around $2.1 billion.
Personal net worth. So that's not even the shares that he has in the companies that's not been liquidated yet. So
FU money confirmed.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like Grumpy says, he's playing real life Football Manager.
All right, what do you guys think? We touched on everything.
I mean,
do you guys
do you
think
want to finish with one last question from the chat?
Yes, sir. Please do.
All right. Grumpy, without judgment of what Giuntoli did so far, Marotta was the one who chose Del Neri, and it failed. Giuntoli chose Motta, and it failed. Why was it a no-brainer to keep Marotta, but not? But I guess what he's saying is like what we're saying is maybe why would we say it's not a no-brainer to keep Giuntoli?
I think that's an easy answer because Marotta at the time wanted to keep Del Neri after that first horrible season, and then our president, with all his faults and all his minuses, stepped in and said, "No, we're not gonna do that. I'm the president. I'm gonna decide Del Neri's out, and we're gonna get Antonio Conte." And at that point, everybody's
Roasted.
like, "Antonio Conte, WTF?" But there's where our cycle began.
But I think at the core of it, you're looking at what Del Neri finished 7th.
Yeah.
But he finished 7th with his Scudetto winning with talented squad, right? For the most part, I don't think. I mean, the next year you come around, and it turns around super fast. Like the team that we have right here, I think I don't think there was an underperformance to the same level. So I think Del Neri had to go. I think when you look at Giuntoli, I think we knew the expectations were going to be low, or top 4, but he still was very curious with some of his decisions. Like we said, in a vacuum, you look at the signings, you're like, these are great, but it's an imbalanced squad. His management of Motta in how he treated players like Danilo and Fagioli, curious. His panic buys, as opposed to adequately preparing for our well-established early in the fall injury crisis, concerning. And then firing the coach with 10 games to go, when the issues inherent in the reason for his sacking, and it's not just 2 losses, it's losing the dressing room. That all started long before now. And so I think it just shows a lack of control and a lack of accountability about how he went about his business, starting with an imbalanced squad and then, responding to admittedly the difficult challenges of dealing with an injury crisis.
I think also at that point you had a president who had a huge set of balls on him and who said, I don't agree with my sporting director or my general director at the time. I don't know what Marotta's function was. I don't agree with Del Neri. I want Conte. It was the same story back then as it was now. I want more Juventinità in this team. So I'm going to take this risk and I'm going to take the fall for it if it goes wrong. If it goes pear-shaped, it's on me. We don't have that right now. We don't have a Scanavino or a Ferrer saying, hey, let's get guy X or Y. And if it doesn't pan out, I'll be the first to acknowledge that. So once again, we're touching on that accountability thing that is lacking, which is never a good thing within such a huge organization. So yeah, we have Agnelli to thank for that, but we also have Agnelli to thank for getting us Pirlo. But in hindsight, if you compare Pirlo to Motta or the seasons that they had, or I don't know which one was worse, to be honest.
This one's not over.
No, there's still a lot to suffer for. Thanks for.
It's not over.
I thought I was the negative person, but you said no.
From a positive or negative standpoint, it's not over. Like we really can't put this season to bed until it's over.
No, and that's the thing that bothers me as a fan the most, because you should have touched or you should have reached a certain goal at this point of the season. 4th place should be locked in, and then if you have that, at least you can come to terms with the fact that you won't win any titles this year. But hey, at least we have that 4th, we have that Champions League spot, we have that money coming in, we can rebuild, we can take our time, because you need time to prepare. It's not just a matter of finishing 4th at the end of May and then going all panicky and start buying players left and right and selling. You need some sort of an outline. And if you can have that fixed spot already in March, then you have a lot more time to plan ahead and to touch on certain things, certain aspects that need to be improved. Whereas now it's going to be, I think it's going to be deadline day, like the last day until we either make it or not. I don't think this is the type of season that'll give us that rest, like 4 or 5 weeks before that the competition ends. So,
boys, comment here from Gob Miners. 24 hours have passed and only 2 players posted a farewell message to Motta. That says a lot. Hard for me to believe it. Hard for me to believe such a rift. I know Mbangula posted one because let's not forget, Motta did a lot of good things to bring the confidence of many players. Like, remember Mbangula starting his first Champions League game and scoring in that game. So I can see how he would post a farewell message. I don't know who the other player is. Maybe as we go, Gob Miners
has to be cool. Has to be cool.
You think so? I guess we'll find out, because actually Nilesh, the guy who does our reels, and I'm gonna play Zach's reel at the end of the episode. He sent me a screenshot of Mbangula's farewell, and he was Bremer. Yeah, Bremer. I guess Bremer and Mbangula posting farewell messages. What do you guys say? We wrap it up. I think we did a great job. This was a crazy couple of days in Juve land, and I feel like we and plus the YouTube live was success. I'm very excited about that. Thank you all so much for joining us.
I want to take time to thank the people as well. I mean, it's awesome. It's
absolutely.
I didn't expect this, to be honest, and I think the 3 of us were like, oh no, it's our first YouTube live. Things gonna go pear-shaped, but it actually didn't. And I'd like to thank you guys for being here. And
Alessandro Belpiero, thanks you all. Thank you guys. Actually, somebody commented on Zach's reel that he created today. You guys are super impressive for this quick turnaround. Bravo. You guys do some of the best videos, and some other comments. So, Zach, well done, boss. Good job on that reel. I will play that. Freddie, Zach, thank you guys so much. Again, my name is Farhad. Thank you all so much for joining us on this special edition of Turin Giants podcast, number 290. I think the kids are excited for the rest of the season. All right, let's finish this episode with Zach's reel, and looking forward to our new coach, Igor Tudor.
All of us can forgive Motta for losing in the Supercoppa, the lowest priority competition for Juventus. I also think many of us can forgive losing in the Champions League knockout rounds, especially when comparing to Juventus's performance in the competition in recent history. And I think the most lenient of us might have been able to write off the disaster against Empoli in the Coppa Italia. And even then, everyone who bought into the Year Zero narrative from management might have been able to forgive not finishing top 4 at the end of the year. But what no one can forgive, what no coach can recover from, is losing the dressing room, which by all accounts is what happened to Motta, as evidenced in part by our horrible performances against Atalanta and Fiorentina. So Motta had to go. This brought a premature end to an underwhelming and often frustrating tenure. As a result, Juventus welcomes back Juventino Igor Tudor to marshal the team to hopefully break back into the top 4 by the end of the season.
Toodaloo, motherfucker.
Hey,